2018 marks PacificSource's 85th anniversary. It's been a very interesting journey for this company that has been solidly a part of the communities that it serves and solidly tied to provider partnership, really back to its original roots. I think there were 4 key events over the course of our long history that are worth noting. First, it was our founding in 1933. At the time, there were 21 physicians who staffed Pacific Christian Hospital. Across town, the Eugene Hospital and Clinic had physicians who went out and essentially contracted with some of the timber industry, and then a for-profit company out of Portland was coming in and contracting to provide health services for local timber mills as well. And those 21 physicians at Pacific Christian thought it was important that they have a vehicle so that they could remain viable going forward, and they created what was called Pacific Hospital Society, which in 1939 became Pacific Hospital Association, PHA. The events around that founding really carried through for the next 50, 60 years, where PHA really dealt with various competitive challenges in the market from many different entities and continued to find a way to adjust to those competitive challenges and create a viable service for the community, slowly growing over those many years. The second major event really occurred in 1984, and it was when PHA made the decision to leave the Blue Shield organization. Prior to that, there were 5 or 6 Blue Shield organizations across the state. Blue Shield organizations were founded by physicians. Blue Cross organizations were founded by hospitals. Those Blue Shield organizations locally and nationally had significant reciprocal arrangements where we wrote business in Lane County. We were able to service members who lived outside of the areas through our arrangements with those other organizations. And likewise, if a Blue Shield organization in Washington State served a company that had employees or members in Lane County, we would provide those services. Well, the decision to leave Blue Shield was really tied to a couple of key events. First, Oregon Physician Services, which was the largest of the Blue Shield organizations based in Salem and Portland, merged with Blue Cross in the early 1980s. And that really started to be the crack that was requiring that those plans come together in some way or really choose a different route. There were a couple of big trusts that the Blue Shield organization served, the Nelson Trust and the Timber Operators Council, and the relationships among those plans after that merger got more difficult. So the company made a decision in 1984 to leave Blue Shield, and I think that decision was critical because what it did is rather than have us become a part of that larger organization, it really charted a different route for us to remain independent and then ultimately to think about how we become a company that served more than just Lane County to be a viable entity going forward. You know, from there we kind of grew through the years, expanded out across the state of Oregon, ultimately into Idaho and into Montana and into Washington as well. Probably the third big event, though, that happened along the way was our acquisition of Clear One in 2010. And why that acquisition was so important is it did 2 critical things. One is it really put us solidly into the government sectors, serving Medicaid and Medicare members. And 2, it made us a really important community player in the Central Oregon market. That decision has really allowed us to truly become a community health plan, serving not just commercial members, but Medicare and Medicaid members as well. And we continue to grow that business and look for opportunities to expand that business as well. And then the last critical event occurred in 2016 when we developed our joint venture with Legacy Health out of Portland, sort of reinforcing our strong provider partnership approach and our community-based approach, and really developing a really important partnership with Legacy Health that allows us to serve the markets that Legacy serves, but also to think collaboratively across our entire region in terms of how we can leverage each of the assets, the many assets that we bring to the table. I think going forward, we'll continue to build on that. We'll continue to build a presence that allows us to be very strong in the communities that we serve, really tuned in with those community needs, and really focused on provider partnerships really across the map. Today we have important partnerships with the Billings Clinic in Montana, with St. Luke's in Boise, with St. Charles in Central Oregon, and obviously with Legacy in the broader Portland area. And I will continue to look for ways to develop and leverage those kinds of partnerships to provide very effective service to our members in those areas and to really address the community needs as we go forward. So while we've had an exciting past, I'm very excited about the future as well.